All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Resilience in the Embodied Classroom, the first of a three-part series promoting students' resilience in pre-K through 12 schools with Dr. Simone Kotraba and the Chris Walsh Center. I'm Natalie McCollum. I'm the graduate assistant for the Chris Walsh Center, and I'm joined by the Chris Walsh Center coordinator, Therese Antrim Roberts, as well as Dr. Simone Kotraba, who I'll introduce shortly. Before we begin, I'll read the Chris Walsh Center mission statement, then make a few announcements and provide some information about how today's training will run. So our mission. The Chris Walsh Center is here to serve our community by providing information for families and educators about the continuum of educational support available to students with disabilities, students who are gifted, and students with unmet needs. The center offers support, workshops, and other programming for families, educators, student support professionals, administrators, and advocates in Massachusetts. The center also conducts scholarly research and provides educator preparation and professional development. We're able to offer you this incredible three-part educational series without cost to you, thanks to a generous grant from the Sudbury Foundation. Much of the work we do is funded through grants. For this reason, and so we can continue to meet the needs of local families, it is incredibly important that we get your feedback on the events we offer. As such, later in the event, Simone will provide you with time to fill out a short survey so we can learn from your feedback and continue to offer more enriching events like this one. Now for some small housekeeping items. If you'd like to receive PDPs for tonight's training, please make sure your name on Zoom reflects the name you want printed on your PDP certificate when filling out the registration, when you filled out the registration form. To change your name in Zoom, click the three small dots in the right-hand corner of your image box on Zoom and click Rename. This will allow you to type your name as you'd like it to appear on the screen. In a few minutes, I'll be taking attendance so we can send PDP certificates. So it's important that we have the correct information. The PDP certificates will be sent out by the Framingham State University Division of Graduate Studies and Continuing Education. And that's going to be sent out via snail mail. So for this reason, it's important that we have your physical address for your PDP certificate to be mailed to. If when registering, you submitted an email but not a physical address, I'll be emailing you after the event to ask for your physical address. Please respond to this email so your certificate can be mailed out. This is the first training in this series for the spring 2025 semester. If you're here, you'll receive the information about the upcoming trainings. However, it's not too late to register, so please invite any friends or colleagues who you think would benefit to register for future trainings. And then finally, we have a few events for caregivers, educators, and mental health professionals coming up. These include our spring 2025 caregiver support group, which I'll put the link to register for in the chat, as well as a book discussion with author, Sarah, and I'm just gonna grab her last name. I'll send that in a few minutes. And a hybrid ADHD panel, as well as fostering family resiliency through all of which are taking place in April. The registration pages for the April events aren't live yet, but they will be available in our March newsletter. So please be sure to stay tuned to learn more and attend for free. I'm putting the caregiver one in the chat now. And then, so now for details on how today's event will run. Dr. Simone Kotraba has done an amazing job designing this event to be experiential. So your questions, comments, and interactions are welcome and encouraged. Likewise, if you're able to be on camera, that would be wonderful. Of course, if you aren't able to turn on your camera, that's fine. Sometimes Simone will invite you to speak out loud, while at other times she'll invite you to respond in the chat. If for any reason you prefer to type your questions and comments, please feel free to put them in the chat and I'll read them for Simone to answer and engage with. So on to today's main event, Resilience in the Embodied Classroom. Dr. Simone Kotraba is the founder of HeartMath Solutions. She's a transformational coach and wellness facilitator who guides individuals and teams on a journey of growth and expansion, helping them unite their hearts and minds. With her lighthearted wisdom and vibrant energy, Simone creates a welcoming and supportive environment for participants to tap into their highest potential. Simone has worked with families, taught and led in pre-K through higher education, and holds multiple licenses and certificates. She's passionate about the integration of SEL and well-being practices in schools. So now I'll turn it over to Dr. Simone Kotraba.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I see some familiar faces. So good to see you guys back here. Yay. And welcome all the new faces. So we're going to get right into it because I want to provide opportunities for you guys to engage, meet a new friend or connect with an old friend. So let's get started. Okay, so let's see. I'll do my share. Not sure what happened there, but let's start out by setting our intentions. So think about it. Why did you decide to sign up for today's class, right? And just take a moment to think about it. What is your intention for today? What would you like to get out of today's session? So just take a moment to just write it down. Doesn't have to be long. Just whatever pops into your mind. So I'll give you about a minute to do that.
Are we putting it in the chat or you just wanted to write it down on paper?
Yeah, just jot it down for yourself because in a moment I'm going to invite you guys to go to the breakout room just to connect. So first, just whatever comes to mind, just write it down. But thank you for the question. I wasn't clear. I apologize. All right, so you can just wrap up what you have written down. And Natalie, I'm going to invite you to just send partners or triads to the chat. To the breakout room. And in the breakout room, the invitation here for you is to just quickly share your intention. And then give everyone a chance to share. And then at the end of each share, just quickly appreciate the person that you've met or what you learned from them based on their intention. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Just give me a thumbs up, a virtual thumb, or your actual thumb, so I can see if my directions are clear. Does that make sense? Yeah, I see nods, I see finger. Yep, thank you. All right, so Natalie, whenever you're ready, honey. Thank you. Welcome back. Hopefully you made a new connection or you were able to connect with a old friend. So I would love to hear one or two voices share out. What is your intention for tonight's session? So you can unmute and share, or you can just write it in the chat, whatever works for you. Don't be shy.
I'm a part of a new program that's, for kids who have trauma background. And I just thought this might be, great information. This series, of course, is I want to do all of them, to learn something new and bring back to the classroom. We work a lot on learning from our mistakes and, so yeah.
Well, we appreciate you, Tiffany, for being the first one to share. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And in the chat, Jennifer put strategies to bring back to my 9th grade classroom for mindfulness, self-regulation, etc. And Leslie put tips, tools, strategies to integrate into my expressive arts workshops.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Beautiful. So, and my intention, I'll share here. Let's get this shared properly. I mean, you think I would be really a master of Zoom by now, right?
I don't think any of us are in all of these years.
So forgive me if you see my messy desktop. Okay, here we go. My intention for tonight is for us to connect, reflect, practice, and receive some content that you'll be able to, bring back to your students in the classroom. So we're going to think, we're going to pair, and we're going to share. That's part of the process for tonight. All right, so let's just jump right into it. The first technique that we're going to practice is called heart focused breathing. And if you were here last semester, you probably are familiar with some of the techniques, but I want to go through the techniques this time around so you're able to practice with your students. So first we'll practice together. And then throughout the session, Natalie will drop the links in the chat. We'll put you in breakout rooms, and then you'll practice with a partner, okay? So that way you're feeling it out for yourself, okay? Does that work? Thumbs up? All right, beautiful. All right, so heart-focused breathing. This is a simple and effective technique. Eyes open, on the go. You're busy educators, busy parents. You're very busy. So we want you to be able to practice when you are actually in the moment. And same for our students. When they're actually in the classroom, they're walking from classes to classes. Practice while they're moving, if they're sitting right before learning, after learning. So we want to use these techniques as a proactive regulation and co-regulation. And then when we are in a space of where we need to regulate because we're, in our fight, flight, freeze response, we could then use the technique as well. So I'm going to encourage you to keep your eyes open while you practice. If you want to get up and move around while you practice, that's also encouraged, okay? So just bring your attention to your heart or chest area. And you're going to just imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of the heart or chest. You're going to breathe a little bit slower and deeper than usual, and just find a rhythm that feels comfortable for you. If your mind happens to wander, that's totally normal. Bring your attention back to the heart or chest and breathing in a little slower and deeper than usual, and find a pace that feels comfortable. And we'll do it for a minute. Now on your next inhale and exhale, bring your attention back to the screen. And just quickly choose an emoji that express what you are feeling right now after that quick practice. Just an emoji showing what you are feeling right now in this moment. Or if you're not an emoji fan, you could just put one word in the chat so we could see what are you feeling after that quick technique. Calm, calm. I see a smiley face, right? Relaxed. Yeah, thank you for that, right? So it's important. And if you are still feeling a little bit nervous or anxious or whatever, and nothing changed for you, also acknowledge and put that in the chat, because that is true for some people, right? And this will be true for your students when we start to teach them new techniques. They'll say, I don't feel anything. I feel tired. I'm sleepy. This is boring. These are some of the things I hear all the time because I'm currently working with students and sharing these techniques with them. And these are some of the things I've heard. So just be mindful that we're just going to appreciate the fact that that they share their experience, not what it is that they shared, okay? So that's important to keep in mind. All right, so we're here to talk about building our students' resilience in the classroom. So this is the definition from the HeartMath Institute, and some of the information that I'm sharing here today will be from the HeartMath Institute. And I'll be sharing resources with you after the session. Natalie will send those out in emails later on. So HeartMath Institute's definition is resilience is the capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, challenge, or adversity. Building your resilience capacity is a proactive way to reduce and prevent stress buildup, sustain your energy, and feel and perform better. This is what we want for students. So when we use these techniques proactively before you start a lesson, right, you're preparing them for resiliency. You're preparing the brain and body to be at optimal performance, right, before learning begins. So you're priming the brain and body to work better. That's exactly what we're doing. Like you're exercising, you stretch before you exercise. Most of the time I do anyway, but not always. So this is the same idea. You want to get them to stretch their brain capacity before you, provide any cognitive load. So the first step is always self-awareness, helping ourselves and our students be more self-aware, right? Understanding it's important to know, right? When you're draining and expanding energy, when you're really leaking, right? When you're tired and exhausted and you have nothing to give, students need to recognize that as well. Like when they're feeling angry, frustrated, impatience, right? We want to teach them how to identify these emotions. And when they're feeling happy and excited and courageous and brave, we want them to be able to understand that as well. So the first step is always self-awareness to building your students and yourselves to build resiliency. So here is an example, and I'm going to invite you to participate with this as well. So this is a quick inner weather chart. And on the, I think, where you see high energy draining emotions, just bring your attention to where the cursor is, right here. Anger, frustration, hopelessness, irritation, right? All of this, embarrassment. These are emotions that drain our energy, and they're high energy drainers because it's in our sympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is where high energy occurs, right? Below here, where you see my cursor says low energy. Let's move the low energy draining emotions. These are the ones that we may not see: sadness, unhappiness, boredom, worried. These are the quiet ones. So these are still draining your energy, but they're lower emotions, right? So when kids internalize, this is where you might see them. And when you see big outbursts in the classroom up here, you might see that up here. I'm going to move over to high energy, uplifting emotions. So happiness, excitement, proud, bravery. This is where when you're playing a sport or doing something excited or exerting a lot of energy, it's still in the sympathetic nervous system, but these are high quality, really renewing emotions that uplifts us. So when we're learning new skills, it's good to be in this place, right? And it's okay when your kids are very excited and jumping off the wall. Sometimes the energy is too high, and then you could help them regulate to bring them down to a lower energy, right? But it's still uplifting because it's the parasympathetic nervous system of the body. And these are the peacefulness, calm, caring, playfulness. This is a good place to be, but we're not always able to be there. So the goal is to teach our students how to move along these lines, right? This is where the self-awareness comes in. So I'm going to invite you for a moment. Think about the past few days. Write 1 or 2 words from the list next to each one of the boxes. So just, draw a quick little box that best describe an emotion you experienced recently. So it doesn't have to be all 4 boxes, but maybe pick 2 boxes where you have been the last day or 2. You could just jot it down for yourself, note it. Perfect. So for example, if you did this exercise with your students and you ask them to identify 1 or 2 areas where they are. What you can then do is they can write it in the box, they can turn and talk with a partner to share. Sometimes they're open to it, sometimes they're not, and we respect that. And then ask them, where would you like to be, right? So if, for example, anyone chose they were in like the embarrassment state, ask them, okay, now that you've identified that you're in the embarrassment state, where on this graph would you like to be? And sometimes they'll tell you, and then you can go ahead and practice. Okay, think if you want to move over to happiness, let's practice heart-focused breathing. If you want to move down here, we can practice heart-focused breathing to move you here as well. Sometimes when we're in the high energy, anger, frustration, it's challenging to move down to the lower energy, uplifting. So sometimes it's better to move over, right? To stay on the top, right? Because if you're high energy, it's hard to jump to calm for some of our kiddos. So it's okay if we move over to excitement or enthusiasm. So ask them to identify and they move over. Sometimes also, and this was true for me when I first started practicing, sometimes if I'm in the high energy draining, I had to drop down to the low energy. Still on the left, on this, the draining over here, I dropped down from anger, frustration to sadness before I was able to move over to the other side of peace and calm, right? So be open with them, share your story. You don't have to go into details, but you can say, this has happened for me as well. When I first learned this, I had to learn to move from high energy to low energy. And then I practiced and I was able to move over to the other side, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Thumbs up. Yeah, so it's a process. So for you, note where you just identify you want it to be. And then when you practice, you can decide where do you want to go next and move to the other side based on what works for you. Okay. If you have any questions or comments, I always encourage you to drop them in the chat or you can unmute and ask. Okay. I'm going to move ahead. Okay, so this is a fun exercise that you can also do with your students. I'm going to go back. Oops, I'm going too far. It's called creative drawing for resilience, right? And I do a lot of with our students, especially the high school students that I work with. We do coloring in the brain. We help them to use expression. And someone mentioned earlier about expressive art. If you're doing that, you can have them also practice because this also helps them to build their resiliency. So this is an invitation to you. So let's start with number 1, the dot number 1. So just grab a piece of paper, a pencil or something to write with. And if you can draw or write on your phone, in your notepad, that's also fine. So just grab something that you can sketch with quickly. So the invitation here, I'm going to invite you to take a couple of moments, I'll set a timer in a moment, to draw an image of your classroom that embodies building students' resilience, right? So we're going to do that first. And then after the time is up, I will let you know, and then we'll put you in a breakout room of 3. And then you'll each have about 90 seconds to share the deeper meaning of what you came up with in your drawing, right? And after everyone has shared, I love to, because this is what's going to help us, right? We're going to reflect back to the partners what you appreciated about what they shared or what you appreciated about them, right? And these exercises I've done with students, especially the older ones, and they really enjoy doing this. So I want you to just play along because when you're doing it with your students, this is exactly a way to help them build their own resiliency. Does that make sense? So now the invitation is grab the paper and pen or pencil, whatever you have. And I'm going to set a timer for about a minute. It doesn't have to be anything, Picasso-like to draw. Okay. And then I'll let you know the next step. So we'll start the timer. All right. Take a moment and go ahead. All right, so you can, just pick your pencil up. And now, Natalie, I'm going to ask you to, in groups of threes, just to invite our wonderful educators to a breakout room to share. All right, now that you're all back, I would love to hear two voices, at least a minimum of two voices to share out on the screen and share your image. I would love to see the image that you came up with if you have one, right? Share your image and the meaning for you. What does resilience, in the classroom looks like for your students? So anyone can unmute. And Mark, are you ready? Are you on doc for sharing?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I thought this was kind of tricky because, what images so I have a few. I have like pictures of different different exercises like kids can do in their chair, or they can, get up against the wall, to work on that body awareness, kind of release energy, things like that. And I also have a big poster with different quotes from different people in history. Some are, profound, some are funny. And I think sometimes implementing those help as well, to change moods and things like that.
Absolutely, Mark. We appreciate that. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yes, it
You're
does
welcome.
change the mood. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else? What did you come up with? Go ahead, Jennifer. Good to
So
see you.
I know, good to see you too. I was actually in with Bobby from last time, and then we have a new
Oh,
friend, Shauna, that joined us.
yeah.
Music was definitely one that came up kind of as initial walk-in to the classroom. But then other ideas, were the just having options in the classrooms for kids. Shauna brought up just having differentiated seating options, sensory fidgets around the room that they can have access to. And I just think having them out there like that is perfect because it's there. It's
Mhm.
seen if they want it. They don't have to ask for it and call it out in front of everybody. So those were kind of, I think, two big ones. I don't know if they feel differently, but
Yes, beautiful. Thank you, Jennifer. We appreciate that. Absolutely. Thank you all so much for sharing. Beautiful. I'm going to share my screen again. There we go. And well, okay, so this is trying to get back to the big screen. Okay, here we go. Slideshow. Okay, so this is an image of the brain. It's the triune brain. I forgot the author, whoever came up with this image, but the point of this image is to look at, right? This is the brain stem, the red that my cursor is swinging by, the brain stem, right? This is the midbrain, and this is the frontal part of the brain, right? So the brain stem is where the fight, flight, freeze response, or fawn response. And when we're in our reactive brain, we tend to be in the brain stem, the back of the brain. When we're in this part of the brain, learning does not occur, right? Because the brain is trying to survive. So all of our resources goes to the area of our extremity, arms and legs, for fighting, right? Or running away or hiding, right? Fight, flight, freeze response. So learning does not happen, okay? So this is when we're dysregulated, when we're in this part of the brain. The midbrain, the limbic system, is our emotional brain, right? That's where love, connection, belonging, all of our emotions are in the midbrain. So if we're able to harness the emotions, remember the grid I showed before? If we're able to harness all those emotions, high quality emotions of care, compassion, gratitude, happiness, joy, calm, then we're able to help students and ourselves access the neocortex, the frontal lobe, right? This is where the green part, executive functioning skills, right? And we know that our young people's frontal lobe is not fully developed until, between late 20s and early 30s, right? Latest research in neuroscience. So if we're able to harness those high quality emotions, we can help them to activate the frontal part of the brain. So the brain is synchronized, it's organized, and they can learn better. They can make better decisions, right? They can do all the things that helps them to be successful and resilient. All right. So that's just a brief overview. I am not a neuroscientist, right? But I'm very interested and been learning about this and how it interacts with social emotional learning and trauma. So this is what I've been learning. So I'm sharing it with you. So here, when we talked earlier about the fight, flight, freeze response in the mid here, right? Reactivity. If we are in reactivity, as our students are, and if we, the educators, the adults, are also get caught in the cycle of, if a student does something, we get into that power struggle with them, right? Or we ignore them. We're also in that reactivity, fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, the trigger response. So we're actually co-regulating in an ineffective way. We're both reactive. So we're in that cycle of reactivity. When we're both in that cycle of reactivity, or even students to students, or educator to students, or just students, right? When we're in that cycle, learning is not happening. And we're stressed, we're in self-doubt, and most kids, some kids will shut down, some kids will get really angry, and we're not learning. So we want to move to the place of inspiration and creativity over here, the creative brain, where we're activating the midbrain, love and belonging, care, compassion, kindness. That's activated, and it's telling the neocortex, the frontal part of the brain, it's okay to create. I'm ready. I can think. I can do this hard stuff. I can be resilient. And then we get into the place of giving and receiving, right? Connection, belonging, and psychological safety. This is where it is when we're in this cycle. And you can do your best teaching, they can do their best learning. Does that make sense? So we want to be in this place. You might be thinking, well, that's great, Simone. How do we get there? Well, heart-focused breathing that we practiced earlier is one way, and I'm going to teach you 2 more techniques tonight to help you get there, okay? So here, if you were here last time, might be familiar to you. So when we think about emotions, the emotions are a significant part of how we interact in life. Okay, if we're feeling happy, excited, courageous, and brave, we're going to do the hard stuff. We're going to feel resilient. If we're feeling depleted and drained and bored and sad or depressed or anxious, right, we're going to be uncomfortable and we're not going to engage in life. We're not going to engage in the curriculum. We're not going to engage in anything. And this is true based on the research, right? So our emotions are the primary driver of how we engage in life, okay? So think back to yourself. When you're feeling excited and ready to go, are you doing your best work? Are you in that creative space of creativity or reactivity, right? So it's true for adults as it is for children, okay? So the most important skill that we can teach our students is to be self-aware, which we talked about earlier, identify their emotions, where they are, and then to regulate those emotions, right? And we need to be able to understand that self-regulation is an autonomic nervous system process. It's not just like take a break. Sometimes we tell our kiddos to take a break, and it's okay to take a break, but we want to teach them, when you take a break, what do you do with that break? Are you going to be sitting there ruminating about the story that happened at recess, or that happened last night, or the grade that the test that you didn't do well on? Sometimes they may ruminate on that. And if they're ruminating, they're getting into the thinking, feeling, reactive cycle, and they're making their brain worse. Right? So we want to teach them how to regulate. So the inability to regulate is really the cause of stress, health issues, relationship challenges, and social problems that we experience, right? So the most important strength is to teach our kiddos how to build their capacity for resilience and how to regulate their emotions and attitudes to lead to better outcomes and better behaviors, all right? So self-regulation is an autonomic nervous system process where the brain and body are in sync and it's regulating through breathing practices, which is the heart-focused breathing technique. Step number 1, some kids might not want to breathe, and that's okay. So you just teach them, observe your breath. You don't have to do anything, just observe what's happening. And the mere fact of observing their breath, that allows their autonomic nervous system to slow down and start to regulate, okay? Just the mere fact of observing. It helps them to just calm the system down. But if you want to regulate a lot faster, practicing heart-focused breathing will get us there, okay? So for the next breakout room, we are going to put in the chat a link to heart-focused breathing, and you are going to work with a partner. And the intention here, the invitation here is to practice with a partner. You're only going to just read verbatim the script to your partner. So partner A reads the script, partner B practices, then you switch, right? So you're just getting some practice here with us. And then at the end, you'll just have a minute to just debrief. So a total of 3 minutes in the breakout room, right? Does that make sense? So you'll debrief. How was this for me? Does it feel weird? Was it helpful? Not helpful? Just debrief with your partner. Okay. All right, Natalie, take it away. Thank you. Beautiful. So I would love to hear, how was the practice? So 1 to 2 voices just to share out so we all receive some of that wisdom that you shared in the breakout room. What emerged from that simple practice for you? You can go ahead and unmute and share. Or if you don't feel comfortable sharing out loud, please go ahead again and put it in the chat. We love that too.
I'll share. We
Thanks,
had
Jess.
we had a little trouble getting the script like right after it left. We couldn't get it from the chat. And I'm also on my phone, so it's like super hard to navigate my screens. I'm so sorry. But we shared, since it was the same practice in the beginning, we had a little familiarity with it. And we expressed that for some of our students, if we were to tell them or even walk through them like that type of breathing, they might get super distracted. Full disclosure, I also teach Reiki. I do like tapping, EFT tapping, do restorative justice circles with my students. So I'm really like, this is my bread and butter. So I brought up a visual where following the breathing as if like a figure 8 or an infinity sign coming up kind of through your core, looping back around your head through your body. And for me, like that visual helps, because if I were just to sit there and count my own breath, I'm gone after like 7 seconds and my brain's already off. So if I like have something that I'm almost mentally tracking in my mind's eye, that layered on seems to help. And it seemed to help.
I appreciate that, Jess. Thank you so much. Yeah, whatever works, right? We want to ensure that it works for them. So absolutely. Anyone else? And the next one, we'll make sure we put the link in the chat before you go into the breakout room, so that way you can grab it. So sorry about that. Yeah. Anyone else want to share what emerged when you practice heart-focused breathing? Oh, in the chat, is there something relaxing?
Yeah,
Okay.
Jennifer had said it was relaxing in the chat. I have like I guess a mild response to Jess, if that's okay. So I actually, oh my goodness, now the name is slipping my mind, but I have the thing where I don't really have a mind's eye. And so I'm an intern as a mental health counselor. And so very often when people are doing visualization exercises for meditation, that's what drives me crazy, right? Of like, I cannot visualize the thing. I can like, I have a general sense of like oceans are blue, right? The sand is like this. So I can like kind of picture parts of it at a time. But somebody was doing an exercise the other day where they gave both options. And I loved that so much, like felt so seen and felt able to participate. And so I love that idea of like bringing in, and I liked how yours was like less of like an imagine a scene and more of like a kind of flowing through your body piece. I think that's really great. But I really, really appreciated when somebody offered like, here's a visualization technique. And then they said, and if you can't visualize, here's like another option. And it was just, yeah, it was it was so good. Like,
Beautiful, Natalie. Thanks for that insight. I appreciate that. Yes. So all these nuggets, let's write them down, friends. Because we're here to learn from each other, because within this room, the wisdom is just, you know, a lot of wisdom. It's not just coming from these slides, it's coming from all of you. So we're going to move into why we do the heart focused breathing, a little bit more science for you. I love the science because then the kiddos, they buy into it when we teach them the science, right? So this is the heart and brain's role in building resiliency. So the HeartMath Institute, you know, the resilience technique that the heart-focused breathing technique that you just practiced to help us build resilience, talks about when we're in, you know, the reactive brain, right? That means we are releasing a lot of cortisol. We don't have access to the frontal part of the brain. But if you look at these images from the red side, this is like the ANS, the autonomic nervous system, which is the automatic system, right? Where our respiration, heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, it really is responsible for all of that, right? So when we are in that place of reactivity, the heart beats out of rhythm, okay? When the heart beats out of rhythm, because it's getting ready to fight, or freeze or run away, it releases a lot of cortisol, so we don't have access to the frontal part of the brain. We move over here to cortical facilitation, and the thinking brain, the light bulb is on. That means the heart is beating in a rhythmic way, and our heart rate varies beautifully. And the heart is sending signals to the brain that you're safe, it's okay, you can learn, right? The reason why the heart, there's a significant, I guess, input or regarding the heart going up to the brain. The research that has been around says the heart has its own little brain, which sends 90% of the information up to the cranial brain. And the cranial brain only sends 10% down to the body. So if the heart is beating rhythmically, like the, you know, beating nice and smooth, it's telling the brain that you're safe. And then your brain organizes and synchronizes and works a lot better. So that's why the research shows that if we focus on the heart, breathing slowly and deeply, that's the first step in the technique that you just did. It helps the brain to work better, to perform better, okay? So that's why that technique was shared at first. Does that make sense? Questions, comments? Okay, we'll move on. So here's a little video that I will share from the HeartMath Institute, Teaching Takes Heart. Okay, let me make it bigger. Please give me a thumbs up when you hear it. Just want to make sure.
Simone, the sound's not coming through.
Okay, all right, we tested this earlier. All right, so let's go back to this one to see if that works, because we tested that. Okay, all right, let's do.
Maybe stop sharing and then share again and see if the audio's on.
Okay, oh, it came off. All right, so let's do it now. Okay, this should work. That's just a little bit of research, right, from the HeartMath Institute, right? So just drop in the chat what anything that stood out to you regarding the research information that just flashed on the screen for you. Just anything that stood out to you. Just put it in the chat. I like the science background. Thank you. Improve physical health and symptoms.
So Leslie said improves overall quality of life.
Yeah, and just note that for yourself, whatever came up, okay? So yeah, so it really improves your overall well-being. And I'll just share my quick story. When I first started practicing, I was burnt out, school administrator, and very stressed, body ache. I would go to the ER thinking I was having a heart attack. And they're like, no, you don't have a heart attack. You're fine. It's stress. And when I kept searching until I found something that could help me. When I started practicing, I noticed that I would, over time, it wasn't easy at first. I'm going to be honest. It was very challenging because I love to be in the anger upper left side of the grid. That's where I was. And I lived there for a long time. So getting to a place of peace and calm was not my norm. So I had to really practice to rewire my brain and my autonomic nervous system for something different, right? Because I was used to the cortisol and it was addicting. Cortisol is addicting, right? So we get into the cycle of thinking and feeling and getting into that, getting ready for a fight always. And now I see things differently. It's easier now because over time, and it's been 5 years now, right? Over time, it gets better. And when you practice over time, it actually changes the neural connections in your brain, right? It prunes away the reactivity, right? Prunes those synapses away, and then starts pruning the joining the ones that you want to improve, right? Because neurons that fire together wire together, like Hebbian's law, right? So that's what does happen. But it takes time and practice. You have to practice with your students, encourage them to practice, making it a part of your routine, okay? So another slide, just so you can, okay, share. Oops, here it is, okay. So here, another graph from the HeartMath Institute. So here, heart rhythm and coherence, right? That is making, synchronizing. So this incoherence and coherence, it's like reactive brain, thinking brain, right? So this is a study that was done by them, the HeartMath Institute, and showed this was a female that they did this study with, and the female was sitting on her couch, and the researcher asked her to just think of a time when she felt a certain emotion, like impatience, irritation, or worry. She's just thinking. She's sitting on the couch. Her body is just supposed to be resting on the couch. And her heart rate, right? Look at the heart rate. Her heart's beating out of rhythm against a closed system, right? So it's beating high, it's beating irregular, and it's beating out of system. So out of rhythm. So this inhibits her brain function, right? And impairs performance. So think about our kiddos. If they're thinking they're stewing over something in their seats quietly, right? And their heart is beating so erratically, right? They're in their back of the brain stem. They're not learning. There's no access. There's no harmony within the brain. So learning is not happening. Okay. And if learning is happening, it's still the learning is about whatever it is that they're ruminating about. It's not the content that you're trying to share. Okay. Over here where it says coherence, like you can see for yourself, appreciation, calm, patience, and confidence. Same person 2 minutes later, Think about a time when you felt these emotions. Just think about a time when you felt these emotions. And the person was wearing the heart rate monitor, and the heart was beating coherently, right? In system. So it was varying nice and smoothly, right? And it facilitates brain function. So you perform at your optimal. And this is what we want for our kiddos, okay? So they could be their best and feel their best. And for us as well, right? So we're going to practice a technique that will help you get there faster. So this is another study, and this is the co-regulation process I wanted to be sure to go over with you, because even if the student says, you know what, Jennifer, I don't want to practice. I don't want to do this. And if some of us do it and one or two of our kiddos don't do it, that's okay, because the impact for that kiddo also will be positive. So for example, this was a study that was done where they had 3 participants, right? So 1 here, 2, 3, who knew the technique that you're going to practice soon. It's called the quick coherence technique. And the researcher asked them to practice the technique. This participant down here did not know the technique. So they coherent, the activity came in this. While these 3 practiced the technique, this participant became coherent, became order. The brain became orderly. They were on the same thinking brain process, right? And that's where the co-regulation happens, because the research is that people and around us. So if we're feeling frustration, we will pick that up. Feeling calm, and we'll also educator as the adults, for your own children if you have them, or for the students that you work with, you being regulated will help to co-regulate them. Does that make sense, everyone? Yes. So it's important that we, the adults, are regulated, so we're co-regulating. Okay. These are some of the emotions that we want to encourage our students to feel, right? On demand. So what you can do to help your students feel these emotions is to ask them, tell me a time when you felt, resilient, or when you felt courageous, or when you felt calm. Tell me a time when someone was kind to you, or when you felt appreciated, right? The mere fact of asking those questions, the brain is searching for those events. And when the brain searches for those events and find those events, the body automatically start feeling those emotions, because the brain does not know the event that occurred a month ago or the event that's happening right now. So we want to teach them how to recall all the amazing things that has happened in their lives, bring it to mind, bring it to think about it, visualize it. What was it like for you? What did it feel like? What did you hear? What did the person say? And bring that back into their awareness, and that will help to renew their emotional well-being. Okay. And it's so simple. If I ask you, oh, tell me a day when you went to your favorite place, right? Your body just starts to feel those emotions again, as if you're living that moment. So that's another way that you can help them build resilience, okay? The technique that we're going to practice first together before you go into the breakout room. So Natalie, you could put the link in the chat. We're going to practice together as a group, and then I'm going to invite you into the breakout room with a partner. All right, so take a look at these renewing emotions and thoughts on this list, and pick one. And if nothing resonates with you here, just pick your own for now. Just pick one that might resonate with you. All right, and just hold it for now. All right, so now I'm going to invite you to think of a time. It could be a person, a place, a pet, a situation, or an accomplishment that made you feel any of those emotions. So let me go back. So a person, place, an event, anything in your life in the past year, month, years, whatever it is that made you feel any of these emotions. So just bring that to mind as best as you can. Don't force it, just allow it to arrive. And just feel into that. Feel into, what do you hear? What do you feel? Beautiful. Now I'm going to move to the next slide. Now, with that in mind, bring your attention back to your heart. And just imagine your breath is flowing in and out of the heart, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. Find a rhythm that feels comfortable for you. As you activate heart-focused breathing, bring that image to mind of a person, place, accomplishment, or situation that made you feel any of the emotions that you chose, and bring that all back to mind. Now breathe that into the heart slowly and deeply, and feel it with the heart, not the brain, not the mind, but bring it into the heart and feel the feelings into the heart. Now I'm going to invite you, just bring your attention back. And now ensure that you have, just make sure that you grab the link for the technique. I want to make sure you grab it first before we put you into breakout room. So the invitation here is to, again, with your partner, just read the script as is, just as is. I know that you have other experiences, but I want you to experience the script as is this time, right? So just read it as is, take turns, again, 1 minute each, and then 1 minute at the end to reflect, and then we'll bring you back. So a total of 3 minutes. Have I created any questions before we send you off? Thumbs up if you're all set. Beautiful. Okay, enjoy your time connecting. All right, welcome back. So we'll just get started. I'm curious. Hopefully you had a good connection in the breakout room. But what was this like for you? Like, we practiced right away as a group, and then you went in and practiced with your partner. I would love to hear 2 voices to share out loud or in the chat, whatever feels right for you. So whoever's at the head or the heart to go first, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if this is right on point, but Shauna and I were talking just about the genius, like simplicity and genius behind having your students think about something that was wonderful to them or that brought them joy before you start class. I tend to go back. I don't know why, thinking about it now. I'm always like, okay, what's this weekend? What's something fun you're going to do? And go forward. I don't, just again, didn't think to go back and find that nugget that will bring them instant joy. So that's
Oh,
my jewel for tonight, I think. I got
yay.
many, but that's the one.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else? I love the little jewels. Oh, so good.
Me too.
Yummy. Who else? Who's up? You can put it in the chat. I see Leslie, you're laughing. You must have a jewel for us. Come on, girl. Share it.
So Mark did the kind of led me first, and I was thinking about my kids, and then I was thinking about each one, and Mark kind of had to like remind me like, hey, you need to come back. And so it was nice, I kind of got lost in that moment, and it was just that quick that I got lost in thinking about my kids.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Great insight. And thank you, Mark. You're brilliant. You guys are just so good. Yes, right. So you want to pick one situation. And I would encourage you, I just want to throw it all out tonight to you guys so you can decide, so we can see what emerged. But encourage your students when they practice to pick like a neutral thing, like something that they love. Try to not use the person yet when you first started to practice, because that happens. We try to pick everyone, right? And sometimes the brain is then busy thinking versus feeling. So encourage them to pick like a neutral thing. A pet is usually awesome. I'll send you guys a video about that. That is pretty awesome. A pet, that's easier to get you in coherence, the heart and the brain synchronizing, and an accomplishment or something from the past. Those are quicker and easier because the brain goes right to that and you can practice versus people. People are sometimes tricky because you want to think of everyone, but it's, it might take away from the actual practice. So thank you for that share. All right, so beautiful. So we'll move right along. We are doing well. So here, just a quick reminder of why we practice, right? It helps you to create a coherent state and offering access to the heart's intelligence. The research shows that the heart is very intelligent. It's a lot of information in the heart. 90% goes up to the cranial brain, only 10% from the cranial brain down to the body. So you want to harness the wisdom of the heart, okay? And next time we meet, I'm going to teach you another technique, not tonight, another technique of how you can listen to the heart and get information from the heart. It's pretty powerful. So we're going to move on to any questions, any comments you want to share in the chat or to me directly. If not, I'll move on. All right, so now that we've learned, we went pretty fast tonight. Now that we've learned these two techniques, the heart-focused breathing, the quick coherence, and how to ask kids to just, remind them of things that might emerge to think about from the past or draw something, what could you start with? Where will you start? What's the simplest, easiest, most immediate action step that you can take to build students' resiliency in your classroom, right? So in the chat, just drop down simple, most effective thing from what we've learned tonight that you can take back to your classroom.
Jess said, practice my own heart-centered breathing.
Beautiful.
And Tiffany said, renewing emotions and thoughts during morning meeting. Jennifer shared, reminder to always start class with joy as much as possible.
Thank you.
And Caesar said, implement the heart breathing technique every day if possible. Bobby, starting sessions with calming music. Rebecca, remembering we need to be regulated before we attempt to co-regulate.
Yes, beautiful. Absolutely. I love the gems that you're dropping my way.
I don't like to type in the chat, Simone, but
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
I have high school kids that I work with, and a lot of times I have a pulse oximeter in my room. I don't know if you know what that is. It measures, your heart, your pulse and your oxygen, your O2. So I kind of use that at times if I see kids come in, anxious or revved. I kind of, even if they're calm, we go through it and say, all right, where you at? And sometimes I don't realize that their heart rate's up and why is their heart rate up? So I like that as a tool sometimes too. It's a little different and it's a little gadget they get to play around with,
Yes, I love it. Yes, because sometimes I bring gadgets too and have them play with it. So yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Are you at AHS, Mark?
I'm at Social Collaborative.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. That was beautiful. And we're at time before we, I want to give you like a 2 minutes to fill out the thing. But I want to take the time to just appreciate your participation and appreciate you for coming and sharing and for the work that you do. It's very important to, take care of yourself and so you can take care of others. So thank you so much. And a lot of the research is showing that, we have the power. And so sharing this with your students will give them the power to take their emotions back and learn how to regulate. So I'll hand it over to Natalie at this moment. So thank you all.
Yeah, so Simone already had you do one of the survey questions. So, even if you only answer one, what's one of the tools that you feel like you can use? So again, we're funded by grants. And so this data, again, allows us to continue to receive funding as well as we use it to inform our programming. So when you guys answer the questions in the surveys, it really does make a difference for the center. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. I have already put that in the chat. With that, I do want to be mindful of your time. So I'm going to do my closing announcements, which again, Simone kind of already hit on them as far as thanking you guys for coming. I did want to make sure, since I had slipped on Sarah Whitcomb's name earlier, she's the author of Bolstering Student Resilience, Creating a Classroom with Consistency, Connection, and Compassion. And that's the author who we're going to have come and speak at the university. And then I believe we'll also have a recording of that available, that you can attend virtually as well. Of course, I want to thank Simone. That was great. I feel like I learned so much as always. And as she said, thank you all for your engagement in resilience in the embodied classroom. And we appreciate you giving us your time tonight. As always, you guys participating in these events is how we at the Chris Walsh Center get to make a difference. We support educators and caregivers so that when you go out and work with your students and with your families, that's really where we get to make an impact. And so we really appreciate your dedication to yourself, your students, your families. And we can't make a positive impact without you. So again, thank you for being here. We hope you have a great night, and that's everything from me. So again, if you could just fill out the survey for us, that's it. And we finished with 2 minutes to spare. Nice job, Simone.
Yes, we will send you the information so you can continue to practice. We'll send you audios of what we did of your heart-focused breathing and quick coherence, so you can play it if that's easier, or you can read it to the students. We'll send you some info that you can use and you can practice. So thank you.
Yep.